Sadness is familiar to everyone, whether it's a long, choking sorrow or a short, quiet dampening of the world. Nobody chooses it. It colonizes the individual, arriving on its own terms, intruding on the mind, and polluting one's experiences. Sadness is intrinsically unpleasant. It's the emotional equivalent of physical pain, raw, consuming, and deeply uncomfortable. To me, it feels comparable to standing exposed on a mountain in the cold. The world around you may be beautiful, but it's harsh instead of inviting. The light is overwhelming, the air cuts deeper than it should, and all that remains in focus, despite the beauty around you, is the need for relief from sensation. About a month ago, I broke my elbow, and in the weeks that followed, I found myself delivered again into the white, blinding cold, my days, in an instant, suddenly becoming shaped by the isolation of injury and the monotonous work of healing, with constant pain acting as a physical echo of the stupid mistake that brought me there. I was in a deep and unrelenting pit, and as time went on, when my body was measurably improving, and I finally began to climb out of it, when I felt a spark of joy for the first time in weeks, I noticed something strange, the familiar pull of sadness, quietly trying to drag me back. That pull felt clearer than ever, and it made me wonder, why does sadness feel so magnetic? It was Tuesday, November 4th, at 4:25 p.m. I had just come home from my first shift back at work since my injury, and for the first time in weeks, life felt normal again. I drove, I talked to my coworkers, I felt capable, useful, and more alive than I had been for the past month and a half. But underneath that relief, I felt something unsettling, an anxiety that didn't match how good the day had been. My brain kept trying to pull me into negative thoughts, as if it didn't trust the positive sensations I had been feeling. Why wasn't I able to just feel good? Why, after weeks of despair, did happiness make me uneasy? Why did sadness feel so close behind me? I decided to take a walk, the only real activity I had while healing, and at 5:31 p.m., I opened the voice recorder on my phone and let myself talk. And somewhere between noticing that and pressing record, something clicked. I uncovered a piece of why sadness feels so seductive to me. I remember one specific moment from 2 weeks after the injury. I was home, arm immobilized in a splint, swelling pushing painfully against the hard edges. My fingers were stiff and immovable. Even breathing sometimes hurt. By then, this wasn't new. This was the new normal. I had a routine. I would wake up, take a 5-minute walk outside until the swelling became unbearable in my arm, then spend the rest of the day on the couch, arm raised above my head, cycling through music, YouTube, and silence. And one afternoon, after a long hour of lying in silence, something happened. I wasn't thinking about the future. I wasn't blaming myself for what had happened. I wasn't worried about money, friends, work, or even my recovery. I wasn't trying to get better. I wasn't even thinking about negative thoughts. I was simply there, in physical pain, in emotional pain, but fully and purely in that moment. It felt like being at the bottom of a deep pit, with gravity turned up, the world dimmer and heavier. Everything felt bleak and glaringly bright at the same time. It was exhausting and incredibly uncomfortable, but it was fully occupying. I felt as though I was of only one mind. There was no noise in my head, no decision making going on, no doubts about my life or what I was feeling, no expectations of what was to come. I was just fully in that feeling and the experience that I was having at the time. And although it was a terrible feeling, something comforting accompanied it. While recording my thoughts, The recollection of that moment made me realize the seductive nature of sadness. I had noticed this pull before through other life experiences, but this time I felt like I began to understand it. Whatever it is, it seems to be related to that mental state it produces of one mindedness in the moment. In that state, nothing demands your attention. The rest of life disappears. All the stressors, work, relationships, ambitions, deadlines, responsibilities fade into irrelevance. Meditation tries to create this intentionally. The vetted flow state does it through immersion in a specific task, but sadness gives it to you freely, effortlessly, and without practice. You don't have to try to be present. You just are, because sadness compresses the entire world into a single point, and for a moment, despite how painful it is, everything feels guaranteed and safe. You don't have to make choices. You don't have to navigate life. You don't have to confront its vast, uncertain possibilities. You simply exist in one emotional state, absolved from the world's noise. Most emotions require activity to maintain. Joy needs engagement, excitement needs novelty, and peace needs intention. But sadness asks nothing of you. It's passive. It arrives on its own, taking no effort except when trying to escape it. And that's the key. Sadness seduces you, pulling you in with a familiar certainty, trapping you with its deceptive pitfall. After weeks in sorrow, you grow used to that singular, predictable mindset. Even though it's awful, it's familiar. It's safe in its certainty. So when you finally feel better, when life improves, when the world opens back up, instead of free, you feel exposed, required to act, to choose, to think, to live. And that's when sadness calls back. Not because you want it, not because you miss the pain, but because the world outside despair is overwhelming. When I felt better that day after work, suddenly there were expectations again, and judgments. My body looks like shit. I need to work out. I need to cook. I need to read. I need to prepare for tomorrow so that it doesn't suck. I need to enjoy the day. It's already getting kinda late. I need to be productive again. The simplicity of despair was gone. I was far from the safety of the confines of that pit, and now I had to actively navigate my mind to keep from sinking back. In those moments, that's when sadness feels seductive, not because it's good, but because it's easy, because fighting it requires effort. It requires you walk into prolonged discomfort, but sinking into it is immediate and it secures you. To live outside sadness is an active choice. To stay away from its familiar embrace, you have to resist its temptation. Once you fall into it, the passive choice is to sit in that pit. One must actively climb out of it continually until reaching far beyond its slopes, before passivity can result in anything but sliding towards it.